Sorry, David.
All righty. Good evening and welcome to the Duluth CSD regular meeting of the Board of Directors on this date, April 20th, 2022. This meeting is now called to order. Roll call is next. Let's see, I don't see Mr. Bowman. Ms. Carroll?
Aye, we're here.
Alessandri?
Here.
Rawson?
Here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, on the screen. Thank you, Gina and Robert. and Mr. Bowman is here. Thank you very much. And we'll let you grab your seat there. If everybody would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of America,
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, proceeding on with our agenda today, agenda item B, authorizing on-site and virtual board and committee meetings. Consideration and adoption of resolution number 22-06, authorizing on-site and virtual board and committee meetings pursuant to AB 361. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor, Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Mrs. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. D'Alessandri?
Aye.
Mrs. Rawson?
Aye.
Robert's aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, proceeding nicely with our agenda. Item number C, Deputy Sam Perez.
Well, good evening. Good evening. Okay. Actually, this past month has been pretty good. Nothing really serious has happened, thank God. The main topics that come up have been traffic, go figure. Since they got reopened, last period though, dramatic drop in making tickets out. I was happy to say that the vast majority are people that come from Fallbrook, Temecula, not our actual residents. So it's, I guess we get it, they don't, to be quite honest. One of the questions that comes up every now and then is Carancho Road, did that change? Let's Steve cover that. That's and that pretty much covers it. But also get a lot of questions regarding code enforcement, particular to short-term rentals, what can and can't do, and how to go through the process with them. So I got up with my friend Ron Welch, my left. He deals simply with short-term rentals. That's his thing right now. But for the past 15 years, he's doing rent work, kind of like me. So I'd like to speak today regarding his issues. I will say this, this is not a time to report incidents like, hey, my neighbor or whatever. This is not what the form's for. He wants to talk about what he can and can't do for the community. So if you have issues, how we can help him, this is a plus. This is where we bring it up and how you get, because like anything, it takes teamwork to solve a lot of these issues. So with that being said, to Mr. Ron Welch.
Good evening, how are you? So my name is Ron Welch. I'm the supervisor over the code enforcement set team. Back in October of last year, Riverside County Board of Supervisors had set aside funding and the necessity to reenact our special enforcement team. Me, currently, my senior officer and I, we work the whole county. We work short-term rental complaints, party complaints, illegal event complaints, vending, and a sort of everything else that anybody needs after hours. The job that the Board of Supervisors laid out is 7 days a week, nights and weekends. My team should have our officers on board and hired by the end of June, but we still are responding to the complaints. So as I do, which isn't common in my particular line of work, my reporting parties are my best friends. They're good because I'm only going to be 7 when we're full team. I want to hear complaints. I want to hear not the complaints like I don't like these people, but hey man, these parties are going on tonight, or maybe there's an advertisement for this going on. Because if I know ahead of time, then I can get resources to address it at that time. Far enough ahead of time. The one thing with short-term rentals is part of unpermitted. When the ordinance is finally approved sometime in October, because I know you guys are dealing a lot with the short-term rentals issues in your area. You can deal with them first on the web and notifications to get them permitted. And then once they're permitted, then we can take the ordinance and we can do the enforcement per the ordinance. The ordinance is really hard, which is good from my side because it's a 3 strikes rule. Once I have to deal with them 3 times, we pull the permit for 5 years. And if they continue to do it, then we go after them civilly. So that's our role, and that's the way that we're gonna enforce that side. Parties, like I said, if I can get as much notice as I can, because they're spread out over the county, then those are notifications I would need as far as I could. So like I said, my reporting parties are my best friends because they tell me where to go. Not like, hey, this going on right now, that's hard to deal with. Hey, they're setting up, I get that a lot. So I might go from here, in 2 hours, I might be 1,000 Palms. That's just the area that I signed up for. So, Ron Welch, like I said, you guys, give you my numbers, you can have my numbers. Best way to give me is email. It's rwelch, RWELCH, @rivco.org. I carry my phone 7 days a week. If I got people in the field, I'm always reachable. So, you might get emails returned on my days off. That's fine. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and then I'll give you direction or do what I can as far as cases on that side. But I'm pretty responsive. Any questions from anybody? Yes, sir.
I understood that the supervisors were looking at establishing an ordinance of no rentals under 30 days. You know
No.
about that?
It's actually, it's exactly the opposite. That the SPR short-term rental ordinance is specific to rentals that are under 30 days. So short-term rentals is any rentals, and they deal with transportation authority tax, which is the TOT tax, for anything under 30 days because it doesn't fall as a long-term stay. So that would be from 1 night to say 2 or 3 weeks in. That makes them responsible for the TOT tax that's paid back to the county as far as permits and everything else. And the authority and the ability to do enforcement actually changes and gives us a lot more to work with.
But they're not, I read an article in one of the local papers that said that they were looking at establishing an ordinance that would ban short-term, but you know nothing about
Not Riverside County, no, sir. Actually, we have a short-term rental ordinance now, and they're passing a revision to it that's gonna actually work a lot better. They got a company going in that's gonna do the data mining, and they're gonna reach out through the whole web, find out people that are advertising, they can compare that to the people that are permitted, and they're gonna send out notices, and then they're gonna handle me. So that's gonna be our site. I have a feeling in the next probably year, our team's gonna double or triple just to handle the short-term rental issue.
that.
As well as everything
You
else.
also handle issues beyond just short-term.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I deal with vending, the vendors on the side of the roads throughout the county. I deal with chocolate vendors at night. I deal with the parties and the illegal events. I deal with noise complaints. I deal with lighting trespass complaints. Me and my senior officer for the county.
Right. And also for people that might have unpermitted septic tanks and things like that.
No, that would actually go to our neighborhood enforcement team, and they will deal with that because that's more of a long-term issue and something that they can observe 7 days a week. I'm more of a response unit that's gonna deal with things that are gonna happen nights and weekends, off hours.
So there's another unit that's code enforcement.
Yes, sir. Our general department, we have 4 district offices. Our 1 district office deals with 2 different districts. This area is handled by Supervisor Cole, and she handles the 2.
Is it 2 or 3?
Yeah, she deals with 1 and 2 district because 2 goes all the way up into Eastvale. And she's the supervisor. She has about 5 or 6 officers. They work 5 days a week, and they work from 7 to typically 5:30. Yes, sir.
What about, there's property, there's a couple of pieces of property for a few years that these people, I don't know if they collect cars and stuff that's been, would you be handling that or one of your other agencies? Let's say this person got 12, 15 cars sitting out in front of his house, trailers and everything. And, it's just an eyesore right in the middle of the loops on Rancho. So is there a line of people can have
Sure.
in the county? Like,
So,
I mean, I wanted to maybe even call the DMV to see, get an investigator, because these cars, I mean, a lot of them, I'm thinking that, no county, there might be something wrong with it. It's been going on for years.
So the general number, so to reach either one of us, me after hours or the regular teams is 951-955-2004. That's our regular number. So like I said, those types of violations can be observed during regular hours, and that would go to our neighborhood enforcement team. And they have actually a specific person who deals with vehicles.
So I can call somebody there, like you said, because I got there 8 PM and at.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the more information you're able to give them is gonna help, yeah. Hey, I know they're not visible from every street, but if you stand up here on Car Rancho and lean over the curb on the public road right away, you can see there's 27 of them. They'll take a picture, they'll go make notice, and they'll,
Okay, okay, good, all right.
yeah, I dealt a lot with years before this assignment. I dealt in and out of your community. I worked cultivation for 5 years. So I worked a lot with Deputy Perez and just everything else. But again, that was through the whole county because I like punishment like that, I guess. But anything else for anybody? So you can reach me by email, not a problem. Just reach out and I'll get back to you and we'll figure it out.
Hey, Ron, yes, one quick question. How could the community help you in terms of, I don't know, with law enforcement, someone's a stop sign, you talk about it, I can't think about it, I observe it, then I think about it. So with some violations, will photographs work, video work, or have to be observed by yourself or one of your officers?
No, with code enforcement, because basically it comes down to the final is a civil process. So I have to go to court, I have to obviously testify to what I witnessed to, same as law enforcement. But if you want to send us information where you saw it from, what you're looking at, we'll take all the information, but our cases have to be built by the officer themselves. Like I said, the 2004 number that I gave you can reach either office. You're just basically going to tell our call center, this is what we're dealing with, and then they will figure out who would handle that. Like I said, what I would ask of all of you is always just what you see. Tell me, let me know what's going on, what you know. So, and that's the same as ever. That's going to always be my best friend because I have limited resources, but it's always going to tell me where to go. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, agenda item D, this is public comments. Jessica, you will be the time monitor, correct? Okay, wanted to remind everybody that, public comments are limited to 3 minutes. You will be provided with a 1-minute warning from me, okay? And, what I would like to first begin with, Jessica, if I can check with you, if anybody on Zoom has any public comments at this time?
We have Dave, if you would like to address the board, you can please unmute yourself.
No, thank you.
And we have a Megan Gamble, if you would like to address the board, please unmute yourself.
You can.
I don't believe she's speaking tonight. Spoke to her earlier.
Oh, she's just
Is there
observing.
another person with Megan? It's okay.
Is that it for Zoom? Okay, then we'll go ahead and proceed with the on-site public comments. And the first individual we have is Mike Kinsman.
I'm, before my time, Rick.
To Rick, okay, very good. All righty, then why don't we go ahead and we have another individual also donating their time to Rick. Unfortunately, I can't read the writing.
Probably Eddie.
Oh, okay, all right, very good. Okay, Rick.
Anyway, I'm not here representing the road committee, I'm representing myself and our community, people who live in our community. Want to make that clear. I'll come back to my shoulders. Kind of got the Kid for the Foundations this past week, or the first of this week, they dug them over the weekend and for the foundations this week. So there's some movement on there. You don't get much, our community hasn't gotten much information. I noticed that I did get an email just before I walked in here. They knew I was going to speak. So to answer a few of the questions that have been asked over and over again, I guess it's going to be like $49 a year for people who use the road over there.
they're gonna have to apply to the road committee. And what I'm saying is just what I've seen in black and white. It'd be $588 a year. I don't know if they have anybody to run the gate yet, which is probably one of the most important parts. But the whole thing, open it up, it's gonna be a phone call scenario. And that's, so, and I did, we put out 10 questions to them. They got answers to 8 of the questions, and they were kind of not right into the point. So what I did, just to kind of take some of the heat off of me and stuff, is I left these questions and answers with Jessica here. So if anyone wants those questions and answers, you can get them from Jessica. And that's pretty much, you know, the traffic is increased, you know, over the last 2 days or stuff like that. And it's starting to slow down a little bit. I think people are starting to see the gates going up and stuff like that. So they're starting to take a little more interest and a little more focus on it. So we'll see what happens. I know I don't have much information for you guys and stuff. I'm sure that Henry, he's representing the road committee. So any questions you guys may have, give it to Henry, and I'll donate the balance of my time to his speech or whatever. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Is there any questions from anybody?
Is anyone there to take questions? Sure, I'll take questions. I don't know if I have all the answers, but I'll take questions.
Do you want to speak?
Yes,
So we can
I
add
signed
to
up
the-
on the wrong form, it looks like.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's quite all right. But like I said, you have 3 minutes. You're welcome to go up to the podium. And your name again, sir?
Henry Gerwig.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll put my little finger up at 1 minute.
I won't take that one. But we're gonna ask some questions.
It-
But that doesn't include the question period, right, in 3 minutes,
Total time.
the whole time.
Okay. So if you want to introduce yourself very quickly again.
Yeah, my name is Henry Gerwig. I'm the newest member of the road committee at Tanya Creek. I'll just get to it. It took us 7 long years to get to this point, but we finally have started construction on the traffic control gates, hopefully controlling the traffic here early summer. And I'll just read the statement that the local community has received today, so you're up to date, whatever anybody knows. After thousands of volunteer man hours, we have been authorized to begin construction on the 2 traffic control gates approved by the San Diego County Director of Planning and Development Services in June 2021. With the approval in hand, our gate contractor prepared our northern and southern site locations for installation of the gate support posts, which were installed on Monday, April 18th. Over the coming weeks, additional work will be completed on the road as we prepare to install the fabricated gates. Once full funding is in hand, we can install the test equipment necessary to meet emergency access requirements. The final step will be to obtain final approval to operate the traffic control gates on our private road. After operating approval has been given, we will begin placing the required permanent and temporary signage described by PDS Land Use and Environment Group, warning motorists that our private portion of Senya Creek Drive will be closed to unauthorized traffic. These San Diego County designated warning signs will be placed once operating approval has been issued and must be in place for 10 days prior to full closure of our private road. In the meantime, I appreciate your continued support and patience as we work through all the meticulous details needed to construct and operate our traffic control gates. As work is being completed, there will be opportunities to donate individual time, i.e. safety flaggers and funds. We have the funds needed to construct the gates. However, additional funding will be necessary to meet all the operating requirements and final approval. If we had the full funding today, we believe our traffic control gates could be fully operational by early summer of 2020 this year. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could ask a question, please.
Yes.
Is there any limitation to the population that can buy the monthly pass to go through?
Yes.
In other words, will the commuters be able to buy a pass to commute?
No commuters will be allowed to.
Okay.
So it's the restricted area is Rock Mountain Road, because that is really, unless they go back to Fallbrook and go on the 15 and go north.
Right.
So they will have access, and then the people in what we call the north, basically you guys, will be able to.
Very good. Thank you.
But you probably don't need it as much as they will. Yes. But those are the restricted, there's nobody else, no commuter traffic will be issued any permits.
So people on this side of the hill will not be able to buy a permit to drive through there at any time.
On the Lewis Road and on Sandy Creek corridor, anybody who wants to buy access can. Yes.
And the access costs are,
Okay, so it's $49 a month, $588 per year for a household. So the limit is 4 clickers, basically, per household.
I do have one more question. Is the mechanism for limiting use of the gate some sort of electronic device, or is it code, or what's the intent?
For people who buy access and the local population within our community,
Mhm.
will be issued clickers.
Oh,
And
okay.
yes. And then the other people who, if people need to make deliveries, et cetera, they'll be given an individual code from the household themselves. And we'll try to track it to see if any abuse will be taking place. Because not everybody is forced.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
Oh,
Did you
I'm sorry.
say, the neighbors to the north get access?
Yes.
And does that mean everybody within the Duluth Community Service District, or just you said something, the corridor
It's basically the corridor.
of,
yes.
of
So-
Sandia
so-
Creek just gets, so like my friends that live on La Cruz, they're,
The cruise would be included, I'd say, yeah, because that's kind of on the corridor,
okay.
yes.
But the people that live over like by closer to the county road, Duluth, they would not get access?
Correct.
Okay.
It's basically the corridor and La Cruz would be included because that's part of the corridor. But if you have, for instance, if you live on Daly Road, you wouldn't be able to,
Okay.
because you have other access. If you live on Daly Road, you can get back on the Lewis Road and go back to Fallbrook, or avoid our place to go north.
Okay, Henry, can,
I'm
at
sorry.
the end, if we can get your contact number or whatever, so
Yes,
people have additional detailed questions that they can get a hold of the right person.
yes, I can leave some flyers too, it has all the information.
Very good. That's wonderful. We appreciate that very much.
Over
Okay,
that table, you can take them
okay,
for your own personal use.
okay, thank you for the update. We really appreciate it very
Thank you.
much.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
basically to get through to Fallbrook, what you're saying is access will be Duluth Road and through the town of Duluth.
If
If
you
you
were a
don't have,
commuter,
if you don't have any,
if you were a commuter, we're trying to direct them on I-15.
oh, yeah, I
From
know.
south. But if they're willing to try the Lewis Road, it's a lengthy way to go around.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But there are people that live
All
on,
right, we need to, we
Well,
need
I've
to
got
move
one more
on.
question, just one more question.
But I
Becky,
didn't
really
finish
quick.
mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. You
He
guys-
gave me his time though. Rick.
Right,
He gave
yeah,
me his
he
time.
didn't have that much time left over, so we do need to wrap it up unfortunately.
for
so-
residents in the Duluth area that don't want to buy a permit.
Yes.
Then they have to go around through Duluth and to Fallbrook.
Right.
Yes,
Okay, so again, what we'll do is make sure that you grab a flyer. We do need to move on in terms of the agenda items, here, but definitely we appreciate the flyer that you have here. So definitely you'll be receiving some phone calls, I'm sure, for greater detail.
sounds great. Thank you
Yes.
very much for your time.
No, we thank you very much. Thank
But
you
you're
so
gonna
much.
have to-
I just wanted,
We need to
Yeah,
move
that
on
would be
now,
fine. Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number E, which is information only. And this is the financial statement, statement of investment policy.
Hard to,
Oh, you know, I'm sorry, sir, you're absolutely right. You were Charles?
yes,
Is it
Andy.
Andy? Okay, yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry
very
about that.
Thank you. I'm Charles Bandy with Midland Farm Management. I'd like to bring a copy of a letter that I wrote to the board, mentioned October 27th, 2021, asking that the board consider a request on behalf of one of my clients to install a gate at the intersection of Calle Pico and Calle Roca. I never heard back from the board of directors from that. I wrote again on January 20th, 2022, asking that the board revisit my letter of October, in which I asked them to consider the installation of the gate at the intersection of Calle and Calle Pico, and I never heard anything back from the board. I called, I believe I spoke to Jessica, and asked her if she could leave a message to someone and have them contact me. She assured me that I would hear back the next day, and I have not heard anything back from anybody at the board level. I did get an email from Steve Liebring where he did venture an opinion that it would probably not be something that the board would do. I've never met Steve. I have worked with him. Very good, Steve. He's been very helpful for me on, I've tried to help him on dealing with some roadside issues. But with all due respect, I don't think that that's Steve's job to venture an opinion as to whether this is something that the board would consider. So I thought I'd show up in person and request that the board direct staff contact me to set up an appointment where we might lay out our request and have some discussion on it.
Okay. I will definitely take on that action item and follow up and take a look at if we've received the documentation. And you will either hear from me and our Jim Emmons.
And we've communicated that it's in state law, that you can ban a street, abandonment streets and highways code, and that's what we were told. So you can go through that process anytime you wish. Then the board has no choice in it. You'll conduct a hearing, and if you can find that it has no public use whatsoever, which is a very difficult finding to make, that's the only way that you can approve such a request. And we have these requests periodically. People get upset. They want their own cul-de-sac. Once they're made public, then that's a county issue. It's been made by the county board of supervisors, making it a public street. They have to follow California law to abandon it. And it's extremely difficult and expensive.
That being said, it's very helpful.
That's the
We'd like to go through the process. We'd like the opportunity and to sit down.
So we'll
and
meet
make
with you
requests.
and give you the, you're gonna need an attorney or somebody to do the documents, and you're gonna have to go to Riverside County too.
Very good.
So
We just want the opportunity. We wanted to hear back from you. We hadn't.
All right. And we'll make sure that we coordinate and get you that information, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, back to the agenda. Item E is indicated information only. Again, that was a financial statement, statement of investment policy. Directors, any comments or questions? None? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on. Item F, which is our consent calendar, which includes minutes of March 16, 2022, regular board meeting, general fund claims for March 2022, sheriff's special tax claims for March 22. Directors, any questions, comments? None?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
A second.
All in favor, Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Mrs. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. D'Alessandri?
Aye.
Mrs. Rawson?
Aye.
Roberts, aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you. All righty, moving on. G, Sandia Creek Via Vaquero. Reconstruction project, Mr. Stein.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. So as you guys all are aware, Sandia Creek has been operational now for a little over a month now. It seems like it's a great project. I'm hoping everybody's had a chance to drive over and see how well everything was done. But now we're on to the last step, and I provided a notice of completion basically for the project. That's the final step where we file this notice to the county, basically, let them know we're done with the project and everything's good. And what happens from there is once we file this notice of completion, we're able to do our final payment for our retention payment to the Marriott Development for their job well done out there. So basically, we're just asking that we can file this notice of completion with the county and basically get this project wrapped up. In the past, I guess, after a long time coming, but that's basically it for San Diego Creek and Vita Carroll. We just need to finish that out and file that with the county, so.
All righty, is there a motion to move forward?
Motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, all
Now,
in favor?
question? Can I question something?
I believe so, yes. Go ahead.
We put page up for covers up on the fencing.
The fencing.
The association actually requires a planted type shrouding on that, and the covers are something that's going to be probably denied to any great extent. We've got some fencing in the association that has covers on them, but we have to get a clarification on the explanation. Right now, it says a living fence or a shrouded fence, not a cover. Is there a reason why you didn't put some sort of a living fence on there?
I'm not aware of the association, I guess, standard or what you're referring to, but I can look into it. But that's just a typical.
How difficult will it be? I know you're going over a culvert, so therefore it's concrete. How you would be able to,
You talk about the chain link fence on top of the wall?
chain link fence goes across the culvert.
Mhm.
And it's got a heating or.
Yes.
Cover.
Basically.
The association requires a living fence.
Okay, but CCNRs don't apply to the public way. So those are, so streets and things like
Well,
that.
that's a clarification we need.
Yeah, I wish I'd known, because we've been out there a couple times about trying to make that look proper.
We've had a couple complaints on it.
Yeah, so we may be able to do something just to, we want to get along, so, but legally, the public rights of way are exempt from CCNRs aren't reported on public way. So technically, we could just say, we don't, no, we don't have to, but, a lot of thought and talk went into this, so maybe somebody could go out and see what we can do. We have a little bit of funds left,
In there to
we
take
could probably make people happy.
I can definitely look into that and
If it's possible, if it's not possible, then that's where we have to go with our lawyer, find out whether or not we bypass the ruling of the issue now.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll definitely look into that. I'll coordinate with Jim on our best course of action for that.
And Jim, is it true that the fence is required for public safety going over the culvert?
See, that's why CCNRs and things don't, the governmental agency have to, protect the public health and safety.
Oh, we understand the fencing being required. That's not-
Yeah.
It's just that generally, chain link fencing in our association requires a living fence.
Right. So,
All righty, well,
well, we can
definitely.
see if we can, I wish we had this conversation.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah. No, Ron will take a look at that, but that doesn't preclude us from moving forward, right, Jim? In terms of.
No, if we wish to, something.
All righty, so let me just go back here again. Is there a motion did I hear a motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay, and there was a second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Mrs. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. D'Alessandro? Mrs. Rawson?
Aye.
And Robert's aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ron, for taking a look at that.
Thank you.
Okay. And you're still on H, Buena Vista, Mr. Stein.
Yes, me again. So for Buena Vista, as you all are aware, we're going through the environmental permitting process. It's been a lengthy process at the time. But right now, I have one piece of good news that we have received our permit from the Regional Water Quality Board, basically. So that was our first permit. That's the first step forward. We've been getting that. The next one, as I've discussed in the past, there are 3 agencies that we have to deal with. The next one is going to most likely be CDFW, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So that has been, the clock is ticking on that one. We received our application was deemed complete around February 23rd. And that had a ticking clock of about 60 days when they're required to give us a response. So that means by April 24th, we should be receiving a response from Department of Fish and Wildlife. Hopefully, because of all the preliminary work we did and in line with what we did on Sandia Creek, that would be receiving a permit, but we have to wait until we hear back from them to hear the exact details on that. So CDFW is looking like late April. We should receive at least a minimum response and hopefully a permit for that one. The next one would be the Army Corps of Engineers, which has been the most difficult to deal with. As of now, everything's been submitted to them. And the good thing about the Army Corps is they usually fall in line with what the Regional Water Quality Board says. So because they're both federal water issues are safe. So basically, when the Regional Water Board gives their approval, the Army Corps typically takes that into account, and then they'll make their decision based on that. And it usually falls in line. But right now, the Army Corps has been having a little bit of a delay on their side, basically, where it's been about a 6 to 8 week period where they were not able to get in touch with a piece of information that they needed, which is tribal consultation, dealing with all the Native American tribes to make sure it's just a process that we went through. We went through it on Sandia Creek. It's the standard process that they go through. So now they finally have been able to get a hold of them, and they have that clock ticking, and we're expecting a response on that from around mid-May. So at around mid-May, we should, we'll have that response on that, and then hopefully the permit will fall after that. But of course, there could be comments. But what we're saying is by around the end of May, we're hoping to get that situated. But again, we're unfortunately at their whim. The agency work on their own timeline as we have seen in the past. So we're moving forward with that. We've been sending out weekly emails to them, and just trying to keep us on a list. The good news is for Army Corps, at first they were just non-responsive for a little too long, and then finally, now that they've gotten back to us, they've been responding to us right away, which means we're in the top of the queue. So everything's moving on that, but we just have to wait until we receive that final permit before we can get boots on the ground for that. So that's the update on the environmental side of things. Then I have another item to go over, but does anyone have any questions on the environmental side?
No.
All right, so I'll move on to basically the construction timeline. As we have discussed in the past, basically, we do have a contractor on board right now. So he has his kind of bid price. We've been reaching out to them, letting them know, hey, we may be getting permits soon. We've been trying to keep in touch with them on this. And basically their bid was good for 180 days. So that timeline has passed. It's been about over 280 days now. As you know, with everything going on, it's hard to keep a price. It's always hard to keep a price for a certain time, but with the inflation rates going on right now, they're requesting basically a renegotiation, but same thing we did on Sandia Creek, basically. So I have reached out to them, and basically I ran some numbers based on the Caltrans Construction Cost Index on the difference in pricing from July 2021 to April 2022, which that was bid the project in July. Their bid price is around $425,000, and according to this index, there's about a 13% increase nationwide. That's for Caltrans, the blanket industries for road work and everything. This is more specific; it's like storm drain, but that would put their when we negotiated, it would put the somewhat within reasonable price, around $480K. But one thing I would like to point out is that the second highest bidder on this project was about $120K above what the low bidder came in at, Southland Paving. So basically, we're if we look at an increase to 480, we're still below the second lowest bidder. And after negotiating with them, and we've been doing a hard negotiation, we've gone back and forth a couple times now. But it looks like they may need to add around 75 to 100K, just based on this inflation rate. So it's a little bit above about 65K that it would go up, but it is within reason, looking at how storm drain prices have been going up so much right now. But steel prices up about 200 200%, we've been seeing in plastic about 150%. So I am working with them, and I discussed this with the committee. We are working on getting these updated prices so they can get this price locked in, and then that would be the last negotiation, and then we'd have everything on there. But the good thing is, because there was such a good bid, even if they do come in with this price, they're still going to be lower than that second lowest bid. So we kind of came to the same conclusion that if we were to rebid this, it's a risk, and so I think that's best that we do go through this negotiation process, see what we're going to do with that, and hopefully move forward with that. But it looks like everything from what we've seen, it seems like it's going to be a good negotiation and still within the best for the project. So that's basically my update on that. That's been a long process, so trying to get everything moving forward as fast as we can.
Very good. Okay, very good. Thank you, Ron. Okay, let's see, moving on to agenda item I, environmental services report. Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, President. We have a rather extensive report this evening on this item, and you are aware of it from previous meetings. This concerns compliance with the matters contained in SB 1383, which is a state law passed in 2016. Was signed by the governor at that time and became effective at the beginning of 2022, this year. And what it involves is this new policy to have a 75% reduction in organic waste in landfills and 20% in edible food recovery by reduction by 2025. As you know, the district since 1979 has been delegated by the county of Riverside with solid waste collection. And of course, we have three basically county departments that were given to us back in 1979. All the road maintenance, collection of solid waste, and then supplemental law enforcement. Generally, we don't talk a lot about solid waste collection. It's kind of one of our quiet areas of operation. But now it's kind of moving to the forefront with all of the changes that are taking place as required by state law. We are still an unincorporated area in Riverside County. We're not a city. And so basically we perform this function under the Riverside County requirement to handle solid waste collection. So state goes to the county in 1979, probably because of our remote geographic location, gave that to us along with the road. And so we operate that as a community service district under the community service district law. And in order to facilitate all of these operations, the district has an existing franchise with CR&R who does all the collection and the disposal on our behalf. The current franchise provides for weekly pickup. Everything is collected in one container and taken to the parish facility where it is separated as necessary by the CR&R personnel and then disposed of by them. When this law came into effect, we knew about it. It was given to our law firm because areas such as ours can apply for what's known as a low population waiver, which accepts certain jurisdictions, mostly small rural jurisdictions. And generally, those that are under 7,500 population, which is based upon federal census tract data, and I'll just quote
that have a population density of less than 75 people per square mile. They're served by the jurisdiction, us, and are located in unincorporated portions of the county. Because of the interpretation of Cal Recycle, our application was denied at the beginning of this year, and therefore we're playing catch up to design a program to comply with the provisions of SB 1353. You, the board, met on February 28th in a special session to adopt the resolution of intention to comply. So you've basically been on record that it is your intent to comply with this program. Since that time, Alex with CRNR, who's going to be speaking next, and I primarily have been working to put together a compliant program that can be presented to you, the board, for acceptance and approval to implement, and then a program that would be communicated to our customers, which we will need to do once it's all finalized as to exactly what would be the mechanics of this program. Currently, just so you know, I don't know what I pay at home, but you pay $40, the new adjusted amount for CPI increase, roughly $40 for minimum pickup, weekly pickup service. What Alex is going to discuss tonight is that the costs under this program will increase your rate from 40 and add an additional, we're looking at around $17 to $26 per month. So that will be something that, yeah, you heard it. The customers of CRNR or your constituents need to be communicated with as soon as we figure out the compliant program. And it is our attempt, what we're attempting to do is we see what it takes to comply with the new law. And we have every intention of doing that and doing it such that we have the best program for our people. So that's what we're operating under right now. Because of the rural nature of our community, there are concerns beyond economics. And that being, we have very narrow roads, trash collection vehicles are very large. There is risk, the trash has to be picked up. So we do that. But the more we expand that operation, the greater the risk of accident. And what we've had meetings about in the past is that vehicles collecting rubbish are now known to catch on fire because of our cell phones, the lithium batteries. And this is an extremely high risk area for that to occur because there are no curbs, there are no gutters, there's no cell phone service. We're a long way from the fire department. The winds blow through here in the fall. Anyway, those are issues that you've mentioned to us previously. Everyone is concerned about, and we're dealing with that in every meeting we have to talk about how to set up the program. So I'd like Alex, if he could come up. I know everybody wanted to know what that price number is, so I threw it out early because I thought some everybody was thinking about. At this point, this is a work in progress. So the numbers that I gave out, they may change. And the details that Alex is going to share with you right now, that may change also. But basically, we're going to show you a model of how we can comply and get this show on the road. So, Alex, could you fill in the details?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Good evening, board. I was here a few weeks ago to give you a brief summary on SB 1383 and what some of the requirements are. Since then, Mr. Emmons and I have also had a conference call with Cal Recycle, who is also here tonight via Zoom.
Yes.
Zoom, okay. And I'm sure Kara Morgan, who's here, will speak a little bit later. So where we're at is Cal Recycle has asked us to put together a timeline to address the requirements contained within SB 1383. So I just want to go over a few of those critical items that need to be done in order for compliance to occur. First and foremost, Cal Recycle requires that an ordinance be passed by each jurisdiction. So an ordinance would need to be put in place. I know that Mr. Emmons has been working on that with, in conjunction with your attorney. And we are more than happy to assist in that regard if you feel that that would help move that along. Once the ordinance is in place, then a contract amendment is going to be required to your existing franchise agreement in order to put stipulations in the agreement of what we will need to do moving forward in order for you to be compliant. In that contract amendment, the most critical part of it is how is service going to be provided? As Mr. Emmons just recently said, we currently service you guys on a weekly basis, right? Cal Recycle has told us that we could go from servicing 3 cans, trash, recycling, and organics weekly, which would require us adding 2 trucks, right? We could now also look at the possibility of doing bi-weekly service, which would mean we still have a trash truck coming every week because we think that's important. And by local ordinances, you have to have your trash picked up on a weekly basis. The recycling and the organics, what we're thinking is do that every other week. So then you only have to add 1 truck. What we're trying to do is minimize the amount of trucks on your roads, number 1. Okay. We obviously understand that the road issue is a big issue. These trucks empty are about 15 tons. Full are about 25 tons. As Mr. Emmons mentioned earlier, last year we were in here and we were discussing the fire issue and the concerns about the fire issue. We bought the drivers satellite phones so they have capability of communicating. We've addressed the issue of fires in the trucks with putting in some fire suppressant equipment in the trucks. It is a huge issue. I'm not going to sit here and say that truck fires are not. We are supporting a bill in Sacramento, AB 2440, that addresses or begins to address the issue of lithium-ion batteries inside of pretty much everything that we have today that needs power. Okay, whether it's a tablet, cell phone, a laptop, power tool. Gosh, we had a fire with somebody who threw a drone in their recycling cart. Those drones are powered by lithium-ion batteries. Everything we have today in society that requires power is powered by lithium-ion batteries. Those batteries, unfortunately, instantaneously combust. Just 2 weeks ago, we had 4 truck fires in 1 week. Last week, we had a competitor out in the Coachella Valley. He had 2 truck fires. Truck fires are out of control. Not only are our trucks catching fire, our facilities are catching fire. So it is a huge issue, and we're not going to downplay that whatsoever. It's a significant issue. So every time you have a truck, you're multiplying that probability, right? So we have to be aware of that. We have to be cognizant. So we've talked with Mr. Emmons about the possibility of minimizing trucks on the road. by doing bi-weekly service, which PowerCycle told us was perfectly fine to do. And so obviously, we're going to look for direction from Mr. Evans and from the board in terms of how you want us to proceed. But our recommendation would be to go with bi-weekly service. It's cheaper, obviously, because we have less trucks on the road that we have to put on the road. And there's fewer trucks that have to come here on a weekly basis. So all that will be addressed in the contract amendment. The other issue that we're being challenged with today, and it's really more of a supply chain issue. As you can imagine, this is a statewide law, which means every city, every county, every community service district in the state of California has to comply with this law. So you can imagine the demand that is being placed on part manufacturers. Right now, if I put in an order for parts, it's a minimum of 16 weeks, minimum. So it could be as long as 4 or 5 months out before we see those parts. Used to be 30 days. Trucks are extremely difficult to come by these days. Just to give you an idea, we placed an order for about 80 trucks last year. So far, we've seen about 10 of those trucks. Parts are a huge issue. Our truck manufacturers basically have chassis sitting on the ground waiting for parts. So trucks are a huge issue. And at the point in time in which a contract amendment is completed and we have direction, then we will order the trucks. But they aren't going to show up anytime soon. Obviously, once we decide on what direction the board would like to go, then we would roll it out with a public education campaign behind it. And I'm looking right now, to be quite honest with you, probably not being able to roll it out until July 1st of 2023, given the constraints that we're faced with. If things change, manufacturers, truck manufacturers and part manufacturers are able to get production back up, that may change. But I don't want to give you a firm date, but if I had to put a date on it, probably sometime July 1, 2023 is what we're looking at, just in terms of getting the equipment. So those are some of the key steps that we're going to be discussing further with Mr. Evans and staff. And then we will await direction from the board in terms of what you would like to see in your community. We are rolling these programs out in every city that we service, all up and down Riverside County. I guess the good news in this whole thing is CR&R made a investment in an anaerobic digester back in 2016, 2017. The only digester of its kind in the United States, $100 million investment. And that digester will take your green waste and your food waste and convert it into 2 products, renewable natural gas and compost. And it's the only one of its kind to the extent that we've done it in terms of its size and its technology. I welcome and encourage all of you to come out and do a tour of the facility. We've had over 300 tours of folks coming out to take a look at it. So you're more than welcome to do so if you would like. And we will be more than happy to have you there. But at least you have a guaranteed location to take your material. Challenging, I'm sure Kara can speak to this on a statewide basis. That's one of the more challenging issues is finding end markets and locations to take this material in the state of California. And again, I'm sure Kara can talk about this, but my understanding is they're looking at adding over 100 facilities statewide in order to address this issue of the organics coming back out. So that's the extent of my comments. If there's anything else or any questions you have, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, I have one question on the schedule for pickup on the alternate week.
Yes.
Does that imply that one of the, say, organics would be picked up one week and then the next week the other one, so that there was, in effect, a second truck on the road each week, but it would alternate between the two?
Exactly. So it would be trash every week.
Right.
And then organics 1 week, recycle 1 week. Organics 1 week, recycle 1 week. So you minimize and eliminate that second truck or the third truck. I'm sorry.
We have with us, Sarah Morgan, who's,
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
the chief of, in fact, Alex, you may want to stay so that you're there for a moment
Sure.
in case there's questions. Sarah Morgan is the chief of the bureau at Cal Recycle that works with local governments such as us. I've been working with her and her staff and various people in her organization. Well, we're just getting to know each other because we've just started working on this for the last month or so. But I'm pleased that she agreed. We've got the top person here from Cal Recycle, and so there she is. Hello there. Anyway, so I'd like her to make any comments because she's been observing our two discussions here. And
Okay, she's on mute.
Thanks, Jim, so much. And thank you, board members. It's a pleasure to be here. I think, can you hear me okay?
yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to thank, the team, Jim, Alex, for working so hard on this. Across the state, jurisdictions, cities, counties, and special districts like Duluth are working hard to comply with these requirements. And so my team is geared up to help Jim and his team with implementing the programs that you know. Because of the nature of Duluth, you're not subject to all of the requirements. Not having, for example, any commercial businesses, you don't have to adhere to some of the edible food requirements and some of the other requirements. So it really is focused on implementing the organic waste collection program. But we're here to help and support the district as you move forward. So thank you, and I'm open to any questions that you might have for me.
Yes, thank you very much for being here this evening. We definitely do have some questions here, so I definitely will open up with the first one. So it's just going back in history a little bit, and primarily I want to do that so not only I, but the board members and our visitors here have a clear understanding, because I'm sure at some point in time we're going to have to be able to have this information in a manner by which to communicate to our constituents and have community meetings about this subject matter. So we need to be able to have the facts at hand, as well as appropriate individuals to also attend these meetings when they do come up and come up, such as yourself. So again, I'd like to go back in history just slightly here for a moment. And I know that we did apply for the waiver and wanted to kind of get into the reasoning as to why we were not approved for that, we were denied that. So if you can give us a little history about that, if you can be specific or point out just the codes or regulations, that would be extremely helpful to us.
Sure. Thank you so much for that. We did provide an extensive response to the district's request, and we laid out all of the details as to the reason that the waiver was denied. I'm not sure, Jim, do the board members have that letter?
Yes, I think we provided it at the meeting on February 28th. And it's basically the issue of they use census tracts that go beyond our boundaries. And that was the basis of the phenomenon. And I think in the era we've talked about this, I'm not sure that we as an agency, we're moving forward, but I don't believe that we're in agreement with your department's interpretation of your own regulation. I was looking at it again today. And also today, just a few hours ago, I just happened on your website to click on the waivers that you've granted, and I used to manage one of those cities, and it's very complex in terms of the issues we're dealing with. But probably only 20% as complex as what Alex and I are dealing with. And they got waived just because they happen to be a city and have their own census tract. And the census, we don't even have 1,000 customers here, spread over 33 square miles. So we're very unique. And I don't know, I was just blown away. And then I saw that they granted a waiver to the Polk County of Riverside for their unincorporated areas. And guess which area they forgot to include? County of Riverside, I've dealt with a lot of counties, like 4 in my career. This is the worst I've ever seen. You are the dumping ground for these people. Because they've asked you to do the trash. I've only known this for an hour, and I'm just steaming. Because they exempted the whole county of Riverside and got it through Cal Recycle. And guess who? La Cresta, they got exempted right across the other side of the hill. And they're much easier to do,
Yes,
the issues to deal with than what we have to deal with, and the safety issues, okay? So they, in 1979, and that's why I put the 79 in the report, they didn't even know where Duluth was in Riverside City, the county of Riverside. And whoever that supervisor was then decided, one thing I don't even know where those people are, but you give them the trash and you give them the roads, and if they want to pay for more police, let them do it. And here we are being created. And then they exempt themselves for compliance with everything that Karen and us are working on. All right, exempt themselves. We're county unincorporated, stuck in this flap about how you define the words unincorporated areas in their regulations. Thanks a lot, County of Riverside, because they could have put us in too, and we would be exempt, or whatever. That just came out, Karen. I didn't have time to call you. I just grabbed Alex and said, "Is this for real?" And we looked at the map, and they've got all the unincorporated areas of Riverside County included in there. So they don't have to deal with the whole County of Riverside, and yet we do. So we need to talk to your supervisor. You do, your supervisor, about that, because that's just typical. In my experience dealing with County of Riverside for the last 5 years, they just are dumping all over you guys. You elect them. I don't understand why they think you're a district that they don't have to take care of you too. But anyway, that's the latest. So Kara, that's the problem here, is we can get this done. But I think the board members and the community members, when they hear about things like this, it's just difficult to explain. So, sorry, I went off, but I've only had an hour to calm down. It wasn't long enough. That county could have called us and said, "Hey, you're the only place in the county that we had to do the trash separately in the incorporated area." And they didn't even work with us on this. We could have been working on this for a year. Anyway.
Sorry, can I extend your
Yes,
question a bit?
Yes.
Kara, I think what we're struggling with, and in conversations with our constituents here trying to explain, is how what appears to be an intent to exclude or give a pass to the rural areas that are really not contributing very much to the waste. Through a mechanism that includes the urban community within the head count for ours. And, we drive the roads every day. If I yell really loud, my neighbor can't hear me. If my dog barks really loud at the same time, he can't hear that either. We can occasionally hear a gunshot over the hill, but we're really separated from house to house. And so the population density is very, very low here. So we're carrying the burden of a fairly large infrastructure for the trash collection through a relatively small customer base. And our understanding of the way that the ability to have the exclusion from this was handled was through a census count that includes thousands of people from the city and our hundreds of people from the country. And it makes me believe that those people were probably double counted, because I'm sure the metropolitan areas that population falls into are including them as well. We don't service them. They're serviced by the Temecula or Marietta process. So we're struggling to understand how our very small population density ended up included in the current situation, when it appears that the state didn't include that. They had the unincorporated area exclusion available, which it seemed very reasonable to us and our neighbors that we should fit into. Could you go into that any at all, and how the interpretation of that census data that includes the cities was used to include our area?
Sure. Yeah. All great points, and I appreciate where you're coming from. We went through almost 4 years of a rulemaking process, engaged with stakeholders, and we received during that time when we were trying to come up with thresholds for the amount of organic waste that could be disposed in these areas that would be waived. We looked at many different options, including going to a smaller threshold of what's called census blocks. But where we landed during this rulemaking process, based on all the stakeholder feedback that we received and our analysis, was leaving it in unincorporated areas with these census tracts. I certainly am not engaged with the U.S. Census Bureau and how census tracts are defined. But that was how the language was written into the regulations. That regulation is in effect. And I do want to say that, when Jim first brought this issue to our attention, I brought together a whole team, including our chief legal counsel, to see if there was any way within the regulatory language that something could be done for Duluth, and there really isn't, based upon how the language is written into the regulation. So that's really where we landed. That is the response letter that we provided to Duluth, which is from our chief legal counsel. But I do want to assure you that we really did look at, was there any option? And it just is the way the regulatory language was written. It is based upon census tracts, and because Duluth falls in a census tract that is over the 75 people per square mile. And again, unfortunately, that's because the census tract, covers more area than Duluth. You are not eligible for the waiver. So that's not an option for us. So then once, we reached a conclusion that wasn't an option, I began to work with your team and Alex to strategize on what we could do. And, what I set up with them was, let's put together a plan, giving Duluth time for implementation as Alex laid out, recognizing that, if you'd known a year ago, you could already be working on it. And so we understand that. And so that's the approach that we're taking. It's not granting you a time extension per se, but we do understand Duluth's situation and are planning to use our enforcement discretion to allow the district this time to plan and implement its program. So I hope that's helpful. It is just, the plain reading of the language. But again, we really did spend a lot of time trying to see if there was some option, and there just wasn't. And I am sorry that I couldn't come up with a solution that would allow you to have the waiver. I don't know enough about what Jim is sharing with Riverside County. I'll ask my team. I'm not aware of very many counties where all of the census tracts are waived, besides in this situation, Duluth, but I can certainly, follow up on that. So I hope that's helpful. I know it doesn't provide satisfaction because it's not, saying why, but we really did spend a lot of time looked at, we tried. And unfortunately, just the way that the regulatory language is written, and unfortunately that regulatory language is in effect. And unless something is changed either statutorily or in the future, if we were to revise the regulations, there really is nothing that we can do at this time. So I hope that's helpful in explaining the basis for the final decision.
It is, and I don't think we have any complaints with the thresholds that are set or that sort of thing. It's really the way the population is collected. It was our understanding that the wording was that the exception was available to the unincorporated areas of the census tract. Was that discussed in your conversations?
Yeah, it was discussed, and with your council that forwarded the information to us, and we did provide in the letter with a response explaining that. But the plain reading of the language is it is the census tract. There is not the ability to carve out portions of a census tract that are smaller than the census tract. So the language is such that it doesn't allow for that ability. And we did address that in the response letter as well. But we did look at it and really looked at the record, the official record of the rulemaking, looked through all of our documents that supported the rulemaking to see if there was anything there, and there just isn't. So it is the entire census tract, and you don't have the ability to carve out portions thereof.
Does that imply that the full population of the census tract shares the cost of the service?
I'm sorry, could you state that again?
I'm wondering if that implies that the full population of the census tract, some 7,000 people, I think, in this particular one, versus a small amount for us, that the entire population of the census tract shares in the cost of the implementation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You know, the way I think as Jim and Alex laid out, you know, the way that solid waste is done in California, it is by jurisdiction. And in this case, the district has its own, you know, collection franchise agreement. In a city, for example, they may have a franchise agreement or multiple agreements. The county in its unincorporated areas has, you know, agreements. So it really is about how jurisdictions construct their solid waste agreements. And that is something that's subject to local control. It is not something that the state oversees or directs. I hope that helps answer the question.
Another thing along that line, is it your understanding that the intent of the law was to exclude the unincorporated areas from the execution of the full extent?
Do you want to give me a little more context to that question?
The fact that there is an exclusion allowed for the unincorporated areas appears to us that the intent of the law was to allow unincorporated areas that have the situation that we have were to be allowed an exclusion so that we didn't have to bear that heavy cost for what probably is not much of a difference in the impact to the environment or I know all this stems from the need to protect the environment from the greenhouse gases that come about from this effect. We kind of help you on that. I've got about 3,000 trees. Most of the folks out here are somewhere in that range. So our tree count's probably pretty good compared with most of the folks in Sacramento.
Probably.
Yeah, so we're kind of trying to help you all out there. If you want to buy a carbon offset, would be a good place to look at. But it seems like the intent of the law was to have this kind of area excluded, and it's the implementation of the law that may be the issue. And so it would seem like the path to solve that would be back through the implementers of the law who interpreted this particular direction when we think it wasn't the intent of the people who made the law.
Sure. Well,
do you believe
yeah, I think that makes sense. Well, I think I go back to is the regulatory process and the analysis behind the regulatory language. And, through all of the thousands and thousands of stakeholder comments and rulemaking workshops that we had, as I mentioned, we looked at different types of thresholds, including going to smaller, what are called census blocks. Based upon the analysis and where we landed in the final determination, we landed at census tracts. So there are many unincorporated areas that have census tracts that don't fall under the 75 people per square mile. And then there are some that do. That was the analysis and the data that supported the regulatory language. And we acknowledged, when during the rulemaking that there were areas that had lower population like Duluth that would not receive a waiver. And that, that all was part of our analysis. And we do cover that in the response letter to the district as well.
So it sounds like there are other people suffering the same situation we are. Is that true?
There are some, yeah, who are in unincorporated areas.
Are there enough of us to be able to look at a change in the way it's implemented?
Well, as I mentioned, the way to change it, I don't know if there's enough. There could be. There's really two ways to change it. One way is to get legislation that would address it. Another way is when or if Cal Recycle revises the regulations in the future, that would be the time for the district and other stakeholders to put forward a request to, revise language or, carve out something, et cetera. I don't know if and when we will revise the regulations. So really your best, the nearest term solution would be something like legislation, but
well,
I certainly
the
couldn't.
Legislation had that in mind by providing for the exclusion.
Well, so remember that it wasn't the legislation, it was the regulation that set up this waiver. The statute did not. And so this happened through an extensive regulatory process with, stakeholders across the state engaged for 4 years in developing the regulatory language. So two different things going on there, but that would be a way for the district would be if you were to get a legislative fix, but that it's not something I can really speak to. Certainly not something that, it's kind of out of my realm when it comes to the legislation, but something you could do.
Is it possible that we could get a list of the contact information and the folks that were involved in the process so that we can pass that on to our constituents here? Since we can't explain why we're here, we can pass that information on to them so they can ask their questions directly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the best way, what we recommend for stakeholders when they have comments and questions is to send it to what's called the SLCP inbox, and I can get that to Jim. But that is the way, some of those staff that worked on the rulemaking package either have retired or moved on, but we do have a team now that oversees the program implementation. So
but,
certainly,
yeah. Tend to be a little simple in their approach to things, and we like talking to folks. And,
sure.
So if we could get the direct contact information for the folks that were involved in creating the process, it might help us understand, because the chances are, if we're talking to somebody in between, they're not really going to understand what the thought process was that got us here.
Sure. Well, I think that the signatory on the letter that you received is from our chief legal counsel, who is most familiar with this issue, has provided the analysis and also the response back to you. So myself also is a resource who has worked on this piece of the regulation and now into implementation.
Talk directly with you. I'm not sure talking with an attorney is going to get us a lot.
Sure, understood. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome to share my contact information.
Thank you. We'll take that into account and maybe pass that on to some of the folks that are asking questions.
Gone through this over and over, and the answers we're getting is the regulatory process and penetrating that is like penetrating the most difficult enigma one could possibly imagine. And just throwing that out at us doesn't answer the question.
No,
No, it doesn't.
And you need to understand that. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we appreciate your doing that. But it doesn't answer the question. We are an unincorporated area. We have less than 7,500. Doesn't make sense. And if your people couldn't see that, then you're saying they're not going to see it now. You know, maybe we need to take a different approach. Because obviously discussion with you and your people is not getting us anywhere. But we thank you for being here, for communicating with us.
Right.
Because I think we all very much more understand the situation and what we then need to do.
I'd like to just add one more to what Robert was saying. Definitely, I know the community doesn't feel that you know who we are. So we invite you in particular, to come here to Duluth. We'd be very happy to take you on a tour through our little community here and look at his 3,000 trees, look at some other property owners and what it is that we do up here in terms of this community. It's a beautiful site, and these are very hardworking individuals up here. And I think it would be a good learning lesson in terms of really understanding who we are and what we're trying to accomplish here, and what we've been living for and why we live up here. So I extend that wholeheartedly out to you and whoever else you think is appropriate. We think it's important because at some point in time, when we do have to have these community meetings, we're going to call upon you and other individuals to also speak, and to speak in a manner by which everybody's going to be able to understand this. And I think that's it on my part. Gina, did you want to add anything in there, my dear?
I'm not happy with what the response was. I understand it, but I don't like it.
Okay. Okay.
We are an unincorporated area, and the census tract includes us with some cities. We're not a city. We are an incorporated area. And the reason we moved up here is because of the beauty of it. And a lot of us compost as it is because we work our living. And to have this extra burden, what am I going to put out? A few lettuce leaves, a couple pieces of meat, and that's going to be in my trash can for 2 weeks. It doesn't make any sense.
And then, of course, just one closing comment here in terms of, we do have some of our constituents here today, but when these meetings are going to be conducted, Alex did refer to one of our major concerns is fire.
Yes.
I would love you to sit down with some of our residents up here so you can know how much we pay for fire insurance. And if we have a fire, we can't live up here any longer because it's outrageous. But we love it so much up here. We're committed to being up here, that we're willing to pay it. But at some point in time, if we have a fire,
We won't be able to afford it.
we will not be able to afford it.
We may not be able to live.
No.
No, we would not. And
Well,
that,
the big issue with that is there are 2 roads in and out of this area. And apparently we have a very large population to get in and out now. But the fact is that there's a real danger of people not being able to get out in the event of a major fire.
And fire trucks not getting in.
Right.
It's true. I think all of those things need to be reconsidered.
okay.
Thank you. You're a very brave person to stand up against this many country folks.
Yes, thank you very much, and we look forward to talking with you again and hopefully meeting you in person. Thank you very much.
Sure, we'll be in touch.
Let's see. Okay, moving on to agenda item J. This is the share contract renewal. Mr. Emmons.
This is a standard business item here, comes prior to budget preparation. Basically, you're going to be adopting the same contract that's in effect at this moment with the Sheriff's Department.
This would be starting July 1st. The document is the same as what's in effect. And essentially what you're doing by adopting this is telling the sheriff that you're going to continue the service you have right now into the next fiscal year. The dollars, because that's going to be the next question, so how much? We're not there yet. You have to tell them, yes, we want the services and what we want. And then in the budget, you will get the rate. I hear the rate's going to be about 4.2%, I believe. But that comes later. And then it should, then the next question would be, well, you're asking us to adopt this, but what if we don't like the price? If you don't appropriate the money July 1st, something tells me Sam's going to be relocated really fast. So that will come, you are actually in the service we make sure dollar-wise in the budget.
Okay.
So this just gets this involved.
The only addition to this would be that they guarantee that Sam will continue.
That's,
Yeah. I think I was conditioned. You can write that in, let's write it in. You want us to vote?
Yes. Okay.
So we'll take a motion second and a roll call vote to approve the contract.
So moved.
So is there a second, please?
yes, I said.
Okay, all in favor, Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Mrs. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Alexandri? Mrs. Rawson?
Aye.
Robert's aye, unanimously approved. Thank you. We're gonna put your name in gold letters. Okay, let's see, moving on, K, traffic and enforcement matters. Mr. Steve.
How you doing tonight?
Good.
Jessica, you got a PowerPoint up there that you can pull up for us? So business as usual, we are moving our CMS board around. It's found Sandia Creek near the cruise. We're gonna keep it in that general area for a while. We have ongoing issues that we're working on. Most of this stuff is just the basic things that we do each month. We're just kind of itemizing it to give you kind of an idea. We spend a lot of time with speed limits and stuff this month. And that brings us up to our current request that we're dealing with for traffic, and that's the 2 all-way stop requests that we received for Los Gatos and Rancho and for Cruz and Sandia Creek. So we want to go back to this, highlight that back in 2018, we reviewed this at the time along Sandia Creek. Well, Cruz was part of that consideration for stops. It had 4 accidents in a 10-year history. And so it was one of those that we were looking at the time. If you look at the next page of the map, you'll see that that was the 3 existing stops in red. And those were the other locations that we were kind of looking at and saying that it makes some sense to do something. So going to the next page, you can see what we implemented. We implemented all those in red. And now what we're asking to do is to look at the cruise. So we looked at it and we did some data back in December and before the Sandia Creek reopened, and we found out that we had 2,600 vehicles, 600 during peak hours. We checked it again after the reopening and it's gone up. And so that's not beneficial for La Cruz, of course. Sight distance isn't really adequate out there for the higher speeds that we're seeing recorded out there. And so we're trying to make up lost time. People are, cutting through their speeding and that. So we can only do so much with enforcement and that, but we are doing that too. Anyway, long story short, we are saying that we're recommending that the all-way stop control be added to Sandia Creek at Cruz. Then we moved over and looked at Los Gatos and Rancho and we said, okay, how does this compare as an example? Well, it has good sight distance, it has no delays, it doesn't have any of these accidents. We compared it direct count, to Sandia Creek's, and we see that it's got 600 cars, less than a fourth of the data. The PM is down at 100 cars versus 600 plus cars, so it's highly different, in that respect in terms of its characteristics. So we're recommending at this time that we deny the request for all-way stop. As you guys took action in the last few months,
We are lowering the speed limit down from 55 to 40, and that was posted a month ago. And now it's effective last week, so we have the signs up, and enforcement is now able to go out there and do their job. And so what we want to do is we have another issue kind of related to the area. And that was that access in and out of the mailboxes, you know. And so what we are doing is we're working on providing an alternative option, which is basically a driveway. You can picture how that would be. It would be a driveway between the mailboxes connecting to Los Gatos. And that way there, you don't have to pull back out onto Sandia Creek or enter from Sandia Creek. I'm sorry, Carancho. You can just come in right off of Los Gatos and put that. So staff is looking to see if they can get that completed, possibly in a week or two. Have that in and working. So, and then moving on to our second project, which was the speed limits. We just kind of talked about everything's effective and now being enforced. So that's a done deal. The final one is project number 3, which was we did before and after counts out of Sandia Creek. We wanted to kind of see what was going on out there. So we took some data, and you get to the pages here now, and I'll just kind of go through these quickly, but you can kind of see how Sandia Creek before, Sandia Creek after, numbers are relatively the same, you know, because on any given day, the traffic can go up 5 or 10%, you know, so it's not, these numbers haven't gone alarmingly one way or the other, stuff like that. But you can see at the San Diego County line or at Avenue Duro, we're still looking at about the same amount of cars. But here's the big difference since the reopening. Buenos Campos, Tierra Rica, 90% of the cars are gone. That's huge. You know, and you look at those peak hours, 4 to 6, you know, you've got 1,000 cars have gone down to 100 cars. But big difference on those streets, which is what we expected to have happen. Little comparison just for Deanza to show you how many cars still go towards Cameron and still go towards the Carancho area. Most of those during those peak hours, as it turns out, are residents. You know. Going on through more pages, same thing, just more data. And then you get down to El Prado South, and we said, well, let's just make sure they're not, you know, shortcut through there. So we took some counts there, and that is happening just like we wanted to. San Diego County line down at Duluth Road, same thing. We wanted to get a little check there because when Rick finishes his Gaby's building, there may be a shift in traffic over there. And so we'll keep an eye on that and see how that goes. So in summary, 90% less traffic on the detour route, you know, a little bit of an increase on Sandia Creek, which was expected, you know, to be coming back through. So that finally brings us to our last request, which was we received, which was to restrict Buenos Campos from being able to be used between 6 to 8 in the morning or 4 to 6 in the evening, so that nobody could cut through on that street. Of course, the only issues besides that is that it's going to push traffic on the Deanza. So the question is that really, you know, the right thing to do? So we said, let's take a look at it and see how it pans out after we get these counts in. So we got the counts in, and then here it is. Now you can see again that this is a reiteration of what we just talked about. But even during the AM, you know, you can see that 175 cars that were cutting through there is now down to 30 cars. Okay, so it's a huge decrease there. Next page is just showing the same thing, just a little comparison. We got a little more balance now between Buenos Campos having 31 cars in the AM and Deganza having 84 cars in the AM, you know, kind of thing like that. So our recommendation at this time is to deny the request to restrict the turns on Buenos Campos during the peak hours, and we can continue to watch this and see how things play out. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Good job.
Thank you very much, Dave. Okay, moving on. Item L, ordinance number 22-02, stop signs. Again, Mr. Steen.
Well, okay,
You wanna go?
It's the ordinance first.
Okay, so you go ahead.
This would put into effect the stop sign that's being proposed with the and traffic court are required to do appended to the ordinance. So the appropriate motion would be that ordinance number 2202, establishing a stop sign at the cruise and Sandy Creek, be introduced by title only, to further reading be waived, and that ordinance number 2202 be passed a second reading and shortened.
Motion to.
So moved.
So moved. Second? Okay, all in favor? Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Mrs. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. D'Alessandri?
Aye.
Mrs. Rossa?
Aye.
And Robert's aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you. M, road maintenance and crew report. Mr. Wyatt, are you?
Mr. Wyatt is out doing his other job right now.
Okay.
At what, 4 o'clock, we start getting calls about a big tree down. It's on Prado.
Sandy,
Can't be in El Prado.
Anyway, and we've seen
Where in
pictures.
El Prado?
Sandy and El Prado.
I'm guessing it's north.
Yeah, it's
of
probably is,
Prado.
right,
Yeah, I was able to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I was wondering if you guys are gonna have to go.
I thought that's why you were late.
Oh, there you go, there you go.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a large tree, they sent in a photograph of it. So Justin's question to me is, you want me to leave the tree till tomorrow and be at the meeting, or what would you like me to do? I said, you just stay right there.
Okay.
I'll handle it.
Okay, all righty.
Yeah, unfortunately, he doesn't have a report, but he did give the report to the engineering committee. And there wasn't anything there that I can't say we can't defer those maintenance reports, things that they've done.
Okay.
To the next meeting.
Okay.
However, there is an issue that did also come up at the engineering, and the engineering committee, who will perhaps give a little viewpoint on the report. I put before you, and I've discussed with Member Rawson, a recommendation that we acquire a skid steer from Caterpillar. And essentially, I'll just sort of summarize, he's sort of written up the reasons. But when Dustin came here, let me back up. The district in the past, with the field crew that they had, did not attack asphalt and road repair, primarily culvert repairs. That was contracted out to asphalt companies primarily. And then when the road needed a different, culvert collapsed, they came out, they shut the street, pulled the broken culvert out, put a new one in, paved it over, and our crews just inspected their work. They did everything else, all the tree trimming and signs and all that. When Dustin came here, and it was under Keith, his background was a little different, and his father was a contractor, so he's grown up on heavy equipment, since age 3 or something like that. And then he's worked for various companies. Anyway, Keith had said, this guy says he can do a lot of this for us. So Keith retired, and then Steve came in, and he's reported the same. So it's like, let's give him a try. Only problem is we don't have the right equipment, so we'll have to rent it. So we did. And lo and behold, things came out really good. And we didn't have that contractor overhead to pay. So anyway, the unfortunate problem is that and now we've had staff changes, and the people that have been brought in have those similar skills, road type skills. So Teresa's been screaming about these lease payments. It's $2,000 a week to rent a skidster. And a skidster is smaller, but it will do with attachments a lot of other things besides just the work that they, Ron probably understands better, but in an explanation, but anyway, if you get all the attachments, it can do a lot of the mowing, it can do a lot of the tree trimming,
It can do a lot of the excavating. So we're seeing the projects that have been completed. One other thing that's come to light is, let's say we're gonna do, and there's a section we're looking at on Caracho, where we need to take the whole section out. It's all potholed, alligators or whatever. So we don't have a big enough asphalt or enough asphalt equipment to be able to do that big of a large compact. But there's nothing that says with our skidster, they can't do all the demo work on the first day in-house. And then we just contract out the asphalt, laying the asphalt. Considerable savings, and we've outlined a little bit how much we estimate would be the savings in our contracting out, which would then be done in-house. And of course, you know, there is still cost, you know, their time, their paid salaries, whatever. But a month ago, we said to Dustin, okay, how are we gonna pay for this? And he said, we don't need the new skip loader that we bought a few years back because it's too large. And actually, they're using the old one because it's smaller. So they went to CAT and said, what would you give us to take this back? Because there's no hours on it. So they agreed that they would take it back for $60,000. And if we bought the skidster from them with all the attachments, so that they just make it lower one day, whatever, that would be $125,000. And then we don't have a trailer big enough to trailer it, so that would be about what we're saying, not to exceed $22,000.
The work that Gene can do is exactly what we need to do. It would be using it right now in that fallen tree if it was here. And the tree would be off the road much faster than it's going to be now. So it's everything is positive. And the fact that even though we have a relatively small crew now, they're doing some very, very good work. And I've seen it personally, and their connection together, the way they work together, connections with the contractors, has been exceptionally good. So I highly recommend it.
I was concur with that too. Yeah, excellent.
We just need the motion. I wrote the recommendation. Right, it says.
I would make a motion that we acquire them.
Second,
I said,
all in favor, Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Carroll?
aye.
Mr. Alessandri? Ms. Crossan?
Aye.
Robert Sile? Approved. Thank you. And please pass on to Wyatt. Thank you very much for a very good outcome.
So only other thing is you probably should tell people where the money's coming from.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have, anytime we have excess funds at the end of the year, end of the year, it goes into roadway rehab, go into there, or it goes into a fixed asset account. And the fixed asset account
It's
has,
80,000 right now.
we need,
What was it? 84, I think. That's not. Yeah,
when Teresa checked it, I'm sure that's, we have adequate funds.
yeah. Yeah. Long-term planning for the general purpose, which has 45,000. So we actually have 80,000 in one equity account and 45,000 in another. So we've got it covered. That we've been accruing over
over the past several years.
Right.
That's what we were talking about.
Yes, and one other thing thrown in, there's actually, how many hours of free rental was it that comes with the deal?
Oh, that's right. To get us all the, we, right now, if you walked into Cat and said you want a skid steer, it's 8 months is what they're quoting to get that. For us, since we're trading in with them, we go to the top of the list, and they're thinking it'd be about 3 to 4 months. That's just their guess. But in the meantime, I believe they're throwing in 4 or 5 rentals of the skid steer that we've been renting for $2,000 a week.
Right.
So I gotta get us over that. Over the hump.
Use some money since we saved some money.
No, great opportunity there. Okay, moving on, let's see. Before I go on, anything else, Jim? That's pretty much it. Okay, thank you. Committee report. Okay, beginning with engineering, we met on April the 12th. During that timetable, our March 8th meeting was approved. And of course, this evening, Mr. Stein, Mr. Lindbring, and Mr. Emmons has provided you with the most recent information in terms of our activities on the engineering committee. Mr. Bowman, anything to add, sir?
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay, very good. Moving on to finance committee report.
Yeah, we met yesterday, and the only 2 important items that I want to bring up. One is that we have sent out an RFP for accounting services for next year. And we have set dates in early May for interviews and selection, and then bring it to the board with recommendation. So hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll have a recommendation for the accounting. Second thing, I'm going to let Teresa tell us why the accountants aren't here this week. Actually, it's kind of good. This is a long meeting. We would be here even longer. So, but it is very distressing that this hasn't been done. But Teresa's going to explain why it isn't here for this week.
Well, our auditors, Leaf and Cole, they've been working on the audit. They're just about done with it, but they realize that they need to have some disclosures and reporting for OPEB. And what OPEB is other post-retirement benefits. So since we have a post-retirement benefit of medical, we have to do we had to go to a third party to do the reporting of that, just like our CalPERS GASB reporting. So anyway, they did not know that they realized it at the end of the audit that they needed to go and have this other layer of reporting done. So that's supposed to be finished up this week. And I could say, I mean, I shouldn't say 100%, but we should have the audit, have them here next month with the fiscal certified audit.
Right. The only other thing is that Teresa did this. I don't know if we distributed this to the board.
No, we did not.
Would be a good
I
idea.
have copies if
Would
anybody
be a
would
good
like.
idea. This is a regular roadway rehabilitation, but if you say that fast and accurately, that's pretty good. Basically, and the only part of this that I want to report, we can look at the rest of it, is that FEMA expenditures to date, almost 3.9 million. FEMA revenue to date, 1.5 million. FEMA accounts receivable is 914,000. And the large project revenue due is 575,000. So as I recall the number, we're going to be about 3.9 we spent, we're going to get about 3 million. So we'll be behind about 900,000. Now, the important thing to remember there is that we fixed Sandia Creek, we fixed David Carroll, and how many, I don't know.
58 other sites.
58 other sites. The important thing there is that these are things that you'll never see. Hopefully. You drive over them, you don't know, but they were wearing away. And if you, at some point in the future, you could have driven over it and you would have noticed it. So this is really something that was very important, had to be done. And we were able to achieve that with FEMA money. So I think a lot of kudos to Jim and to Teresa for doing all of this. That's my report, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Legislative Committee Report SB 415. No new updates. We're still having as appropriate ongoing conversations with all respective parties, but at this time, no further update.
The one thing about that is that we're not going to get the gas tax this year. Because it's,
Yes.
we passed by the supervisors meeting that would have, it would have had to have been approved to get it to the state. We're looking at fall.
Yeah.
We'll have it next year.
Very good, thank you. Agenda O, General Manager's Report, Mr. Evans.
Well, as we've talked about, CR&R rates, their annual rate adjustment in the franchise, 7.4%, and that puts it in the $40 range for the basic service, $40 and change. I've discussed it enough tonight. This is just an informational item because it is automatic as far as our franchise goes. Let's see, and then Duluth Cleanup Day, that's this Saturday, and everything's in order for that.
Yes, 1 o'clock.
And I guess just one other thing I'd like to mention, when public streets are made, as far as when they divide property, it's all important planning and zoning and subdivision, that becomes the ownership of the state of California, okay? We all think our street is our street. It's not. It was given away years ago by the person who created the parcel, a developer or whatever. And we hear this once in a while. I've heard it all in Denver City, whatever. Well, I don't like the way you're taking care of my street, so I want it back. That's what we heard tonight. It belongs to the people. It's not your street anymore. Okay, but we get these questions, and I guess just because you type a 1-paragraph letter and Steve responded to it, that's not an unusual statement to be made. But it's kind of like I give you a car and then 5 years later I come grab the keys and say I'm taking it away. It doesn't work that way. You can ask for your street back, but there is a section in the law, way it is the early part of the law. So I guess this has been going on for centuries. It's impossible to get back a public street because you, the elected officials, have to make a finding, which then legal action will be taken if it's found to be incorrect, that there is no value to the people to give that back. And then there's all these rules about where it goes back to. So people come in once in a while. There was another person that wanted a big party house or something on his cul-de-sac and wanted to. We can't give away the public property. It's a massive process. And anyway, so it hasn't come up here before, and it rarely comes up. But it is common that people will say, well, can I have my street back? I'll take that back. It is something, there's a process for. We don't have a form up front where you can, there's no blank that will give you the street. Anyhow, it is rare. I haven't heard that in years, but that's the thing. That's about the most difficult. We'll have an easier time getting out of this recycle than you would get your street back. Anyway, that's the end of my report.
Okay. Just a quick question. We do have the flyers up for the Duluth cleanup on the neighborhood boards.
Is it on the neighborhood boards? I know
You know,
it went out in the bills, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it goes down in the CR. It should have been in your last or whenever you get your CR.
So I.
Oh, okay.
I've seen the.
We have the flyer
It's
here.
posted on our website and the
But
flyer.
we can have the crews.
It's just on the, yes, everybody's picking up their mail and tomorrow's Thursday and it's Saturday only, right?
So maybe we'll
Yeah.
go over the next day.
Yeah.
Put it out.
Yeah, we'll do that, absolutely. And we have extras if anybody would like one here. we could give you one before you leave too. We have a printer.
I'd like one, but I'm not there, so just email it to me.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. Okay, moving on, P, legal counsel matters, Mr. Simmons.
I'm just going to reserve my comments for closed session.
Okay, very good. All righty, that is Q, closed session. This is conference with our legal counsel. Yes, sir.
I didn't get a chance, I thought maybe it was public. Can I ask what the deal is with the highway patrol at this point?
They were there today and yesterday.
Huh?
They were there today and yesterday.
Oh, they've been
Yeah.
wonderful, actually.
Well, that's good to hear.
What is that?
It's the same, but it's all new personnel down there. During COVID, everybody retired, so we're dealing with new people. But they seem very eager to please. They came and have a meeting. What do you want from us? Blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of back where it was a couple of years ago.
So they're signing up for extra duty on during the busy time, early morning and late?
Yes.
All day or what?
No, early and late. So,
So the peak hours again.
right.
Okay.
And a lot of, we are subject to those guys signing up, so if nobody signs up there, they can't.
Well, they've been.
But yeah, so that's really good to hear. Yeah, because we don't get a lot of feedback in that.
Yeah.
regard. You guys are out there.
Yeah, I've seen it also, you get a lot of cars flashing your lights at you when
Oh, yeah, you
you're going out there trying to let them know down there.
Well, I'm on the road every day,
Okay.
And I see them every day, just about.
Oh, good.
That's, we'll back them off as time goes on. We're monitoring the other situation. We're gonna keep pouring money in, but we need to retrain everybody's thinking with the road. And that's why they came here for a meeting, and they talked about that. And, and we asked for them, because I was afraid that after COVID and all this, that we wouldn't get anybody signing up,
Yeah.
And, so they said, we'll go out and work our troops and we'll get you some people and we'll try to retrain your motorists.
So they've been every, the last 3 weeks, they've been really active.
Well, I've got to call him. So I'll mention that to
In
him.
fact, he was right one, they were right one across the street here.
Okay, well, that's good. That's really good to hear.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, last item here, closed session. This is a conference with our legal counsel. And there are 2 items on the agenda. Do I need to cite both items at this time?
No, it's sufficient that it's on the agenda.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to ask our visitors to please exit the conference room. Upon completion of our conference, the doors will reopen and visitors may return to the room. Thank you.